1.
Hi everyone, this is Adam from Adam's Canary Corner, and after a few requests from some of the viewers asking about some tips on breeding, today is going to be about breeding. In fact, I wanted to do a video on some of the tips on breeding and what has happened so far in the breeding season. The breeding season has officially finished for me. We have 18 healthy chicks of different colors, and I have encountered some positives and some negatives in the process, which I was planning to do. But today we're gonna cover many points that we spoke about before. So I do recommend that you go back to the old videos and watch them, but I'm gonna go through them step by step. Now, for a successful breeding season, you need to have a successful molt season, I call it. What I mean by that, if the birds have to molt in the best way possible. Now, to make sure that the birds molt in the best way possible, you want to make sure that they have a cool, clean bath every day, and they have a clean environment, and they have egg food or a protein supplement every day during the molt. This will reduce stress, it will build strength and immunity in the birds, and it makes the process of molting a lot easier, so they carry themselves well into the breeding season. So when the breeding season starts, these birds are in the best possible condition to start the breeding. It is also recommended that the females have enough space to fly around so they can keep a healthy weight into the breeding season. I have noticed that I had one female this season when she was overweight, she had difficulty laying eggs, she was egg bound, and her eggs were not of the best quality compared to the other healthier birds. Now, in terms of diet, so the diet for the breeding season, one of the most important components is calcium. So I usually use AV1 Shelly Grit. The Canaries love it. They love the Shelly Grit. It's really good quality, and you can find it in a lot of stores. I go to my local MacArthur Pets and buy it from there. And you can also use the cattle fish bone. Sometimes the birds do like it, sometimes they don't. But once they see this, they completely ignore the cuttlefish bone. I don't even use it anymore. So this is excellent. The small, they're small, they're really fine and very easy to eat by the canaries. So that's the calcium. You need to also make sure, and that's one of the things that I've created myself, is to give them something that boosts their fertility. Something that has vitamin E and zinc and good oils. And this is where I mentioned in the previous video to mix walnuts and almonds and find them together in a processor and give it to them in the egg food. So walnuts and almonds. Then I also, definitely the main component is the eggs. So eggs, I usually boil the eggs for 15 minutes. That's the main component of the egg food. And I usually also use a mix of oats, quick oats, and wheat bix, due to their benefits in terms of the carbs and the iron and all the vitamins that comes in the wheat bix and the oats. And I also add extra, just to boost their diet, is the Paswell egg and biscuit. I add a spoon of that to the mix. So that is the main diet for the adult birds. I start usually 1 to 2 months before the breeding season, and I put the pairs together in the first week of September. I don't put them in August, I put them in September. The other thing I do is that I do the sock seed. I use a tonic mix, and in the tonic mix, once I soak it for 24 hours in cold water, I use Milton as a sterilizer for the water, and I add a little spoon of this and a larger spoon of that, and they mix it together with the soaked seeds, and I give it to them every day. So I don't let the seeds sprout due to time constraints. I work full time and I don't have the time to let them sprout and move on to the next step and so on. All my friends do, especially my mentor John Shurib, he does, but I did promise him that I might do this in the future, so we'll see how we go. Now, this is in terms of the diet. And if you want more information, go to the previous videos and watch the diet for the breeding. Of course, the one more important thing, the seed. So I mix Canary seeds with tonic mix and Niger seeds. The portions are in the previous videos. That's for the yellow and white canaries. For the colored canaries, I use the Paswell red factor mix, and I only add to it Niger seeds because the Niger seeds are very good seeds to keep the birds in top condition as well. Now, that's the diet. Now, in terms of the breeding, you need to make sure you choose the right birds to breed. If your males are not singing strongly, if your males are not are aggressive, if you're sometimes they're too aggressive to the point that they don't even like to mate, they just become very aggressive and very vicious with the females, you don't use these males. You want to use a male that feeds the babies. You want to use a male that sings and very active, and make sure that he feeds the female as well while she's sitting on the eggs. That's the type of males you want. In terms of the females, you want the females to be healthy, to be of good weight. You want the females to sit well on eggs. Females who don't sit well on eggs, they're no good for breeding, because a lot of these eggs will turn up empty and you're not gonna have a success. So the females have to sit nicely on the eggs. So you need to monitor the birds. You need to, if you're not having enough to monitor the eggs, you have to have a camera in the room or in the cage or in the shed to monitor the birds. So it's very important to notice how the females behave. Do they sit well on the eggs? Do they sit long periods of time? So these points are very important. And as I said, molting season is important to have a successful molting season. Now, in terms of the way I do the eggs, when the females lay eggs, I take the eggs out and I put dummy eggs in. Once the female finishes the clutch of eggs, in the afternoon of the last egg, I take all the dummy eggs out and I put all the real eggs, and you wait for 14 days for the eggs to hatch. If you want, you can basically check if the eggs got anything inside after a week or 10 days. I don't even bother with this. I just let them go for 14 days, and whatever happens after that, I'm okay with and I'm happy with. It is a hobby, so we don't want it to be too complicated, too technical, basically. Now, a very important thing I've noticed in this season, which I was going to talk about, is the nests. So what happened this year is that I use the closed box nest. I mentioned before they're very good nests and they're amazing. You can put the eggs at the top and everything. But what I've noticed, I've got pairs that gave me 5 eggs, 5 chicks. I had a pair that gave me 6 chicks. What I've noticed that the chicks that sit at the end of the nest, they don't get enough food. So the parents end up feeding the chicks at the front of the nest and leave the chicks at the back with no food. And I lost one chick because of that. He was very malnourished because all the 4 siblings at the front were having all the food and he was pushed all the way to the back. So I lost that bird one day in the morning, and my wife called me and she said, you know, we lost that bird this morning. What happens is that it creates a lot of dirt inside. So it is very hard for the parents to clean the nest, and also very hard for the chicks to move around. So what I usually do, I open the back gate, I put gloves on, and I scoop all the poo out. And I do this regularly, especially after 1 week, because they start getting bigger and they produce more of the feces, and I have to call it regularly. So that's a tip on this. This is perfect for 3 chicks. 4 chicks maybe, but I still don't recommend it for pairs that make or get, like you end up with 3 chicks or 4 chicks from. 3 chicks is perfectly fine. More than that, I don't think this is suitable, unfortunately. This is one tip I would recommend, is to use this only for pairs that you know will give you 3 chicks or less. Anything more than that, you go back to the good old open nest. Because this nest, they sit around, they can, you know, even when they poo easily. The poo falls out on the sides or on the floor of the cage, and the nest stays clean. And also, by having an open nest like this, the female can stand here, the male can stand here, feed the babies, or the babies can rotate easily, and all the chicks can be fed equally. So this is a tip. If you have pairs that definitely give you 4 or more chicks, use an open nest. Don't use a closed nest. It's not very successful. It was a struggle for 2 nests this season, and I'm gonna take my care on when to use them and who to use them with. So back to the open nest, they definitely have a place in the breeding. In fact, they are the first choice when it comes to breeding. Now, when it comes to lining the nest, I still use the lining that I buy from Bunnings. So this is called the, you can buy that from Bunnings, and it's called the long. Yep, so the material is the long-lasting advanced jute. So this is the one that I use to line the nest. Now, in terms of the things that go into the nest, you've got 2 choices. You've got the tissue paper, toilet tissue paper. But if you want to go a little bit better, you can use the cotton ripple. Now, the cotton ripple you can buy from pharmacies. It's an excellent choice to line up the nest. In fact, it is a bit better than toilet tissue. And I thank John and Eugene Shurub for highlighting that for me this season. I started using it. One tip is very important to notice to make sure that you don't end up with eggs falling off the nest or chicks falling off the nest, is that the depth of the nest should be at the probably just about half of the nest. Anything higher than that, you're running the risk of having the chicks, especially when they're small, flying from the nest when the females jump out to eat or to feed the babies. So I want to make sure that they build a nest enough for the fact that the depth is not more than the recommended halfway mark. I think anything more than that, it's gonna cause problems. And I lost 2 chicks this season when the females jump out of the nest. Unfortunately, the little babies ended up jumping out of the nest as well. So this is a tip to make sure that this doesn't happen. So make sure that the depth of the nest is correct. Halfway is very good. More than that is not recommended. So this is for the nesting depth. Now, the other tip is that I've noticed some males can be a bit aggressive to the babies. Now, you can give the male a second chance, but if that male continues to be a problem to the chicks, you need to do something about it. Now, if you like the male and you want to produce chicks from the male due to singing or color, you can continue doing this, but you need to make sure that you take the male out of the nest once the female lay all the eggs, and you let the female feed the babies for 4 weeks. Once the babies are about 4 weeks or even 3 weeks, start to eat, or halfway through between 3 and 4 weeks, you can separate the chicks when they start to eat. When they start cracking seeds, you can separate them from the mom, and you put the male back with her to start a second round. Now, these are really the main tips, the pros and cons about some of the things that I've noticed during the breeding season this year. Hopefully next season will be less of a stress. In fact, sorry, before I finish, another point on the males If you notice that the chicks are growing really well after 1 week or 2 weeks, this is definitely an indication that the male is feeding. If the chicks after 4 weeks are not growing well and they're not thriving and not fully feathered, probably the high possibility the male is not feeding. How do you know that? Two ways. You're either gonna sit and watch them all day if you have the time to do so, or I recommend having a camera in the room to watch them. Now, this is definitely for people who take this hobby seriously and they like the hobby and they want to breed the canaries. For those who are really just having fun, maybe one pair or so, that's not a problem. But for me, I have to have a camera in the room watching all the pairs and what's happening. And this is the benefit of the openness, so I can know which male is feeding, which male is not feeding, because it's very important. If your male is not feeding after 4 weeks, after 2 weeks, then you need to take this male out and let the female finish the job. And once the chicks are about 3.5 to 4 weeks old, you put the male back to start the consecutive round, the second round or the third round. So watch the males. The males have to feed, because without feeding after 2 weeks, the female will build a nest and the chicks will starve to death. So you need to make sure that the males are feeding. And I'm happy that I have a camera in the room. It's made my job a lot easier this season, and I recommend it for everyone. Thank you everyone for watching this episode. I hope I have answered some of the questions and given some good tips about the breeding. And if you've got any comments or any questions, leave it for me on my channel and I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you.